Your insurance company received a report that you experienced multiple blackout episodes while driving. The claims adjuster's voice came through my phone with the kind of clinical detachment that made my stomach clench. I was standing in my kitchen, coffee mug halfway to my lips, and the words didn't compute. Blackouts? Driving? Me. I'm sorry, what? I set the mug down on the counter. The ceramic clicked against the granite. Multiple reports of concerning driving behavior. Swerving between lanes. Running red lights. One incident where you nearly collided with a vehicle at an intersection. The reporting party expressed serious safety concerns. My fingers found the edge of the counter. I steadied myself there. Who reported this? I'm not able to disclose that information, Ms. Bailey, but given the severity of these allegations, we'll need to schedule a medical evaluation before we can continue your coverage. The line went dead. Not really. The adjuster was still there, waiting for my response, but in my head, everything had stopped. Blackouts. I'd never had a blackout in my life. I was 52 years old, in perfect health, and I'd been driving for 34 years without a single accident. I knew exactly who had done this. My son, Gregian, and his wife, Paula, had been living with me for 8 months. 8 months of watching them take over my house, my finances, my life. 8 months of small cruelties disguised as concern. And now this. This was different. This was calculated. This was designed to make me look unstable. The realization hit like a fist to the ribs. They weren't just trying to control me anymore. They were trying to erase me. I'd invited them to stay after Gregian's company downsized. He was my only son, 41 years old, and he'd sounded desperate on the phone. Paula had lost her job the same month. They had nowhere to go. My guest house was empty. The decision seemed obvious at the time. It wasn't obvious anymore. The problems started subtly. Paula mentioned that my driving seemed erratic during a trip to the grocery store. Just a comment, nothing serious. Then Gregian suggested I might want to see a doctor about my memory. Had I noticed how I sometimes repeated myself? I hadn't noticed, because it wasn't true. But hearing it said aloud made me second-guess everything. Then came the financial suggestions. Paula was good with money, she said. Would I mind if she helped manage my accounts? Just to make sure everything was organized. I'd handed over access to my checking account, my savings account, my investment portfolio, all of it. By month 4, I'd stopped questioning anything. Their voices had become louder than my own. When I'd expressed concern about how much they were spending, Gregian had looked at me with such disappointment. Mom, we're family. Family helps family. Are you really going to make us feel unwelcome? I wasn't going to be the villain in their story. So I'd apologized and handed over more money. The insurance call changed everything. I called my daughter Lorelei that evening. She lived 2 hours away in the city, and we hadn't spoken in 3 weeks. The silence between us had grown since Gregian moved in. Paula had mentioned that Lorelei seemed distant, that she probably didn't care about me as much as I thought. I'd believed it. I'd stopped reaching out. Mom? Lorelei's voice was cautious when she answered. Is something wrong? My insurance company says I've been having blackout episodes while driving, that someone reported dangerous driving behavior. It's not true, Lorelei. I've never had a blackout in my life. The silence on the other end stretched too long. What? I pressed. What do you know? Mom, Gregian called me 2 weeks ago. He said he was worried about you. He said you'd been having memory lapses and that your driving was becoming dangerous. He asked if I'd noticed anything concerning when we're together. The room tilted. What did you tell him? I said no, of course. Mom, I didn't believe him, but I was confused. Why would he say that if it wasn't true? Her voice cracked. Oh, God. He was setting this up, wasn't he? Yes. But why? What does he gain from making you look mentally unstable? I thought about the accounts, the access to my finances, the way Paula had started asking me to sign documents. Just routine paperwork, she'd said. I'd signed them without reading them carefully. One of them had been a power of attorney. Another had been a modification to my will. Control, I said quietly. He gains control. The next morning, I called my lawyer. Miriam Cortez had been handling my legal matters for 15 years, and when I explained the situation, her response was immediate and sharp. Don't sign anything else. Don't give them access to anything else. And don't drive anywhere with them in the car. If there's documentation of these false reports, we can use that against them. How do I prove they're lying? You get a medical evaluation, a real one, from a neurologist. You document that you have no blackout episodes, no memory loss, nothing. You get that in writing. Then we have evidence that contradicts their claims. I scheduled the appointment for the following week, but I couldn't wait that long to act. That night, I went into the guest house where Gretchen and Paula were watching television. I need you both to listen to me very carefully, I said. My voice was steady. I know what you've been doing. The insurance company called me. I know you reported false information about my driving. Gretchen's face went pale. Paula's expression shifted into something cold and calculating. Mom, we were just concerned. Gretchen started. Stop. Don't insult me with lies. I want you both out of my house by tomorrow morning. You can't do that, Paula said. She stood up slowly. We have rights. We live here. Not anymore, you don't. Actually, Paula smiled. We do. Check your will, Brielliera, the one you signed last month. My blood went cold. I'd signed something she'd called a will update, something about ensuring my assets were properly distributed. What did I sign? You made Gretchen your primary beneficiary, and you gave him power of attorney. He can make decisions about your property now, including whether we stay or go, and he's decided we're staying. I stood there, my hands at my sides, understanding the trap I'd walked into. I'd handed them everything, the access, the authority, the legal right to my own life. I'm calling the police, I said. For what? Paula's voice was almost bored. We live here. We're family. You invited us. There's nothing illegal about that, and if you try to kick us out, Gretchen can use his power of attorney to have you declared incompetent. After all, you've been having blackout episodes while driving. Multiple witnesses have reported it. There are no witnesses. You made that up. Prove it, she said. I walked out of the guest house and locked myself in my bedroom. My hands were shaking as I called Lorelei again. They have power of attorney, I told her. They have control of my will, and they're threatening to have me declared incompetent if I try to throw them out. Oh my God, Mom. We need to fix this immediately. Can you revoke the power of attorney? I don't know. I need to talk to Miriam. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed listening to the sounds of the house, my house, where two people who were systematically dismantling my life were sleeping in my guest house, spending my money, and planning their next move. By morning, I had a plan. I called Miriam first thing. I need to revoke the power of attorney and the will modifications immediately. Bring me the documents. Bring any evidence you have of the false insurance reports. And bring your medical records. We're going to need to move fast. I spent the next hour carefully photographing every document I could find. The insurance company's letter. The power of attorney form. The modified will. I emailed them all to Miriam. Then I packed a bag. Where are you going? Gretchen appeared in the hallway as I was carrying my suitcase toward the door. Out. Mom, we need to talk about this. You're upset. You're not thinking clearly. This is exactly what we've been worried about. Don't, I said. Don't you dare try to gaslight me. I know what you're doing. I'm going to my lawyer's office, and I'm going to fix everything you've done. You can't revoke the power of attorney without my consent. It's binding. We'll see what a judge has to say about that. I drove to Miriam's office with my hands steady on the wheel. My mind clear, my vision sharp. No blackouts, no memory lapses, no episodes. Just a woman who'd finally seen the trap and was determined to escape it. Miriam was waiting for me in her conference room. She was in her 60s, with steel gray hair and the kind of expression that made people take her seriously. "Tell me everything," she said. I did. I told her about the 8 months of subtle manipulation, the financial access, the documents I'd signed without reading carefully, the false insurance reports, the threats about having me declared incompetent. She listened without interrupting, taking notes, her jaw getting tighter with each detail. "This is elder financial abuse," she said when I finished. "Combined with attempted fraud against your insurance company and coercion, we have options." "What options?" "First, we revoke everything. The power of attorney, the will modifications, all of it. I can do that today. Second, we file a police report. What they've done is illegal. Third, we get you that medical evaluation so we have documentation that you're mentally competent. And fourth, we prepare for the possibility that they'll fight this." "How do I get them out of my house?" "You file an eviction notice. Since you've revoked the power of attorney, you have full authority over your property again. They're not on the lease, they're not on the deed, and they're no longer family members with any legal claim to stay. Give them 30 days' notice, and if they don't leave, we go to court." The relief was so intense it made me dizzy. Over the next 3 days, Miriam revoked every document Gretchen and Paula had gotten me to sign. She filed the eviction notice. She helped me change the passwords on all my financial accounts. And she prepared the police report. The neurologist's appointment came on a Wednesday. The evaluation was thorough. Cognitive tests, memory assessments, balance and coordination checks, everything. At the end, the doctor looked at me with a slight smile. "Ms. Bailey, your cognitive function is excellent. Your memory is sharp. Your reflexes are quick. There's absolutely nothing here that would suggest blackout episodes or any kind of neurological impairment. In fact, you're in better cognitive health than most people your age." He put it in writing. Official documentation. Proof. I brought that letter to Miriam, and she filed it with the court as evidence of my mental competency. She also filed a motion to have the false insurance reports investigated. Gretchen and Paula got the eviction notice on Friday. They had 30 days to leave. They didn't leave quietly. On day 2, Gretchen called me. His voice was different now. Not manipulative, not concerned, but angry. Raw. "You're making a huge mistake, Mom. We were trying to help you. We were worried about you. You were trying to steal from me. We needed money. We needed help. And you have plenty. You wouldn't even miss it. That's not how this works. That's not how family works." "Family?" He laughed bitterly. "You're throwing your own son out on the street. Don't talk to me about family." "You committed fraud. You tried to have me declared incompetent. You stole from me." "We didn't steal anything. Everything we took was with your permission. Permission obtained through manipulation and coercion. My lawyer says that doesn't count." He hung up. Paula tried a different approach. She showed up at my bedroom door that evening with tears streaming down her face. "Brielliara, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. Gretchen pressured me into it. I didn't want to do any of this. I love you like a mother. Please, please don't make us leave. I looked at her standing in my doorway, crying crocodile tears, and I felt nothing. No sympathy, no doubt, just clarity. You have 28 days to find somewhere else to live. By day 15, they were packing. By day 28, they were gone. But the damage wasn't finished being revealed. 3 days after they left, I got a call from the insurance company. The investigator had traced the false reports. They'd come from Grigian's phone. He'd made the calls himself, creating a false narrative about my driving to justify the claims he was planning to file against me. The plan, apparently, was to have me declared mentally incompetent, take full control of my finances, and then file a claim against my insurance company for damages related to my dangerous driving, with himself as the beneficiary. It was a 3-part scheme, and I'd almost fallen for all of it. The insurance company dropped the investigation into my driving and filed their own report with the police. Grigian was arrested 2 weeks later on charges of fraud and elder abuse. Clara came to stay with me for a month after he was arrested. We didn't talk much about what had happened. We just sat together in the quiet house, and gradually, the tension between us dissolved. She'd believed me when it mattered. She'd questioned her brother's narrative. She'd been there when I needed her. "I'm sorry I pulled away," she said one evening as we sat on the porch. "I'm sorry I let them convince me you didn't care about me." They were good at it. They were really good at making you doubt everything. They were, but I'm not doubting anymore. The court case took 6 months. Grigian pleaded guilty to fraud and elder abuse. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison. Paula testified against him in exchange for immunity, revealing that she'd been the one to suggest the insurance scheme in the first place. During the trial, I sat in the courtroom and listened to my son's lawyer argue that he'd been under financial stress, that he'd made poor decisions, that he deserved leniency. I watched Grigian sit at the defendant's table, and I felt the last thread of connection between us snap. He was my son, but he was also a stranger who'd tried to destroy me. The judge was not sympathetic. After the sentencing, I stood in the courthouse hallway with Clara, and I made a decision. I was going to change my will. Not to punish Grigian, that wasn't the point, but to protect myself and ensure that my assets went to people who actually cared about me. I left my estate to Clara. I set up a trust for my grandchildren. I donated a significant portion to a charity that helped victims of elder abuse, and I cut Grigian out entirely. Miriam tried to talk me out of the last part. "He's your son. You might want to reconsider." "No," I said. "I've reconsidered everything. I've second-guessed myself. I've doubted my own mind. I'm not doing that anymore. He tried to have me declared incompetent. He tried to steal my life. He's not getting anything from me." The will was finalized in September, almost a year after Grigian and Paula had moved into my guest house. Now, 18 months later, I'm sitting in my kitchen on a Tuesday morning, and the house is quiet in a way it hasn't been in a long time. Clara visits every other weekend. We have dinner together, and we talk about real things. She's my daughter, and I'm grateful for her in a way I never was before. Not because she's obligated to be there, but because she chooses to be. I've started seeing a therapist who specializes in elder abuse. She helped me understand that what happened wasn't my fault. That manipulation is a tool used by people who are skilled at identifying vulnerabilities. That the fact that I fell for it didn't make me weak or stupid. It made me human. I've also changed how I handle my finances. I have Clara review any documents before I sign them. I've set up alerts on my accounts so I'm notified of any unusual activity. I've become vigilant in a way that feels exhausting sometimes, but it's the price of safety. Grigian is in prison. He's eligible for parole in 18 months. I don't know what I'll do if he's released. Lara thinks I should consider a restraining order. Maybe I will. But for now, I'm just trying to move forward. The insurance company formally closed my case and apologized for the investigation. They even sent me a letter explaining that they'd updated their fraud detection procedures based on what happened with Gretchen. It's not much, but it's something. It means that maybe, just maybe, what happened to me will prevent it from happening to someone else. I still drive. Every day, actually. I drive to the grocery store. I drive to my therapy appointments. I drive to meet Lorelei for lunch, and every time I get behind the wheel, I'm aware of how close I came to losing that freedom. How close I came to being locked away, declared incompetent, stripped of my autonomy. The scariest part wasn't the fraud or the stolen money, or even the legal battles. The scariest part was how easy it was for them to make me doubt myself. How quickly I started questioning my own mind. How readily I accepted their version of reality over my own. That's the real damage they did. Not the financial theft or the legal manipulation, but the erosion of my confidence in my own perception. It took months to rebuild that. It took therapy and documentation and the unwavering support of my daughter to convince myself that I wasn't crazy. Last week, I got a letter from Gretchen. He's in a minimum security facility, and he's allowed to write letters. I didn't open it. I put it in a drawer, and I haven't thought about it since. Whatever he wants to say, whether it's an apology, or an excuse, or an attempt to manipulate me one more time, I don't need to hear it. I've moved on. I've rebuilt my life. I've learned to trust my own mind again. And I've learned that family is a choice, not an obligation. The people who matter are the ones who show up when it counts, the ones who believe you when you're being gaslit, the ones who stand beside you in the courtroom and hold your hand when the verdict comes down. Lorelei is my family now, not because she has to be, but because she wants to be. That's worth more than all the money Gretchen tried to steal. If you or someone you know is experiencing elder abuse, contact the Elder Care Locator at 1-800-677-1116.